Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Justice for All. Last we left off, we went through a lot of theories and suppositions to proclaim Acro as a murderer. I mean, seriously, a whole bunch of theories and suppositions, which thankfully led up to what the murder weapon is. It's Max's bust. However, it is extremely heavy, and because of his physical condition of being in a wheelchair, Von Karma is now saying that it's difficult, if not impossible, for him to commit this crime in that fashion. Let's hear what he has to say about his physical state. Well, I suppose I could have lifted something the size of that bust. I have a strong upper body from working as an acrobat, and only my legs were injured. However, lifting the bust and looking out of the window would have been impossible. There's no way I could have exerted that kind of force on my lower body. That makes it impossible for me to have known the location of the ringmaster's head. Thus, it would be unrealistic for me to drop the bust on him, don't you think? That's actually a fair point, yes. Physically speaking, if you wanted to look down out of a window, you have to lean your body forward, and that requires lower body strength. He currently has no lower body strength, so if he tried to do that, he would fall, and he would be the victim. Oh, God, that actually makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. Hmm. I have no doubts in regards to this witness's testimony. It was impossible for him to lift the bust and stick himself out far enough to look. Not to mention that he could not have known the location of the ringmaster's head. A single false step would have led to even more severe injury. That's what I was thinking. What is your opinion on the matter, Mr. Wright? I'd still like to proceed with my cross-examination. He's simply stalling. It's shameful, really. Can't let her get to me. I've got to focus. Yeah, he pretty much only had one chance to make this work. If he messed up, he either hurts himself or reveals himself to be an attempted murderer. He only had one shot, so how did he make this shot work? It's a blind shot. Well, I suppose I could have lifted something the size of that bust. Have you ever lifted up the bust before? Whoa. No, I've never actually lifted it up with my own two hands. But I should get to it, don't you think? I can't let money outdo me on this. Money? That crazy monkey has lifted Max's bust before? Whoa, that's a strong monkey then. Wait, if the monkey has lifted Max's bust... Money stole Max's bust and brought it to Acro's room. That's how Acro ended up getting his hand on the bust. Unfortunately, that's not the question we're answering. We're answering how he could have killed the ringmaster. With a blind shot. Oh. Please continue with your testimony, Mr. Dingling. I have a strong upper body from working as an acrobat, and only my legs were injured. So, what have you been doing to keep in shape? Oh my god, I keep doing that. Well, honestly, I've given up on training. I don't have any plans to return to the trapeze or the tightrope. You don't say. But, no offense, I'm not worried about losing to you in a race or anything. Neither am I, Mr. Phoenix Wright. I wouldn't lose either, Slowpoke. I mean Nick. Whoa. How did the discussion turn to me all of a sudden? I suppose you could say that I'm stronger than the average bear. However, lifting the bust and looking out of the window at the same time would have been impossible. And why is that? Because if I were to do that, I'd end up falling out the window myself. I still haven't gotten much feeling back in my legs yet. So you couldn't have thrown that bust out of the window. There's no way I could have exerted that kind of force on my lower body. long do you think your recovery will take? Well, you have to remember that my nerves were severely damaged. I'm currently undergoing some extremely intensive rehabilitation, but it's still going to take a while before I'm back to 100%. Let me remind you of another very important point. If the weakness was carrying the bust, he would not be able to see out below the window. That makes it impossible for me to have known the location of the ringmaster's head. Why do you say it'd be impossible? Well, allow me to explain. If you accept that I was carrying the bust, I couldn't see out below the window. Thus, there's no way that I would know the location of the ringmaster's head. Well, I suppose you got a point there. Hey, Nick? Huh? What if you turn things around? Maybe if you think sort of like this. That he knew the location, yes. If he knew the location of the ringmaster's head, then he could drop the bust. That does make sense. But if only I could prove somehow that Acro knew the location of the ringmaster's head without looking down. The location... I think I've already explained things sufficiently. Thus, it would be unrealistic for me to drop the bust on him, don't you think? If all you had to do was drop it, then it wouldn't have been a problem at all. If all I had to do was drop it. You're right, I could have done that. However, there's no way I could land a direct hit on the ooh, get you, Dove. However, there is no way that I could land a direct hit on the ringmaster's head. Well, that kind of makes your theory a bit pointless, doesn't it, Mr. Wright? Acro is strong enough to lift up the bust. The main problem is how he could have aimed for the ringmaster's head. I wonder if he used some kind of tool to aim for the ringmaster. That's the ticket, Nick. Show him what you got. I have to be careful. I have to find something that fits perfectly with the case. I don't remember us finding any sort of tool, though. Or maybe we overlooked something. He had to have used a marker of some kind. Something that he doesn't need to rely on sight, but rather his hearing. He's okay. Obviously he can't see. So how would he know when to drop the bust? He would have to hear for something, listen for something. I'm trying to remember the crime scene. What was at the crime scene? Something that would prove as an audio marker. Something audio. Audible. It wasn't a tape recorder. Well, that would be weird. A tape recorder there, no. No. He would have to have heard... He would have needed to have heard something that would let him know when to release the bust. Something that he would need to have heard. At the crime scene, the only thing that could possibly have made noise would be the ringmaster himself, because he was still alive at that point. I mean, we do have that chest, but the chest can't make any noise, unless depending on how you carry it, but... Could it be that the chest itself was the marker that Acro placed for him to know when to let go of the bust? I think that might be the marker. But then how does it present a noise? Because he had to have heard something to tell him when to do it. I mean, it has to be this box has to be the marker that says, okay, he's standing at this spot. Let it go. This has to be the marker. Unless he's saying that it's a 20-pound box. If you're intending to lift something, which a normal person would try to do, oh, it's a 20-pound box. It'll take some effort to lift. Even if you're a very active person, it'll take a little bit of effort to lift a 20-pound box. So that would be his audio cue when he's probably like bending down to lift it up. I got it now. This box is his audio marker for when to let go of the bust. Never mind, it's not. It is not. Oh wait, I think I did it in the wrong spot. Shoot. Oh, wrong spot. I didn't pay attention to that. I did not pay attention. No, it's right here. That makes it impossible for me to have known the location of the ringmaster's head. No, after what I just explained, this 20-pound box is your marker for knowing. Acro, you didn't really need to lean out of the window, did you? What are you driving at, Mr. Wright? You already knew ahead of time where the ringmaster's head was going to be. Quite precisely, I might add. Your silly hinting at things is pointless, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Now enough stalling. How about you show us some evidence? But I did such a good job hinting. Yes, hurry up and explain things, Mr. Wright. Maybe you should take a look at this. The key point here is the wooden box. The same wooden box that the victim was found hunched over. The same. The question is, who placed it there? Who? When Ben and company saw the ringmaster, they didn't see him holding the box. Which means that this wooden box was already placed at the scene of the crime. Well, I have to admit your theory makes a lot of sense. The moment that the bust came falling down was exactly the same moment the ringmaster lifted up this wooden box. That's what I thought. That box was Acro's cue, was his marker. Which means the answer to all these questions is now crystal clear. You don't mean... If the bust were to fall upon the point marked out by the wooden box, there'd be no way it could miss the head of the victim. No! Order! Order! No, this is unbelievable! Some of these loose ends are starting to tie themselves up. Now, I just gotta keep going. And there's only one way to go from here. Forward. So, the next question I have is, who placed that wooden box at the scene? It was Mr. Dingling, of course. Naturally. He connected it to a rope, and then all he had to do was lower it down. Yo-ho! Allow me to get some sense into you, Mr. Phoenix Wright. The ringmaster's head could have been anywhere when he lifted the box. Well, that's why the box was so specially made. Specially made? Indeed. It had the most peculiar feature of being extremely heavy. The box has a remarkable weight. According to court record, it weighs approximately 20 pounds. Just to lift up this wooden box would have required. Oh, I see. One would have to squat down, then lift it up with their body, wouldn't you say? That's exactly what I was trying to point out. The box is also very large. The box also has carrying handles on either side, doesn't it? That is correct. To lift up the box, you'd have to squat down. Which means that no matter who you are, your head would be in approximately the same place. That is so true. Standing to the side, to the back, off center, it's right there at the box. You fool! He even bother to listen to me anymore? I've heard what you had to say. What? I must admit, I'm shocked at your imaginative skills. Did you do it? Did you place this wooden box in the plaza? Mr. Wright may have a vivid imagination, but I could never have done what he's proposing. What? Mr. Wright, Do you recall the original location of Max's bust? The origin... No, I've already explained this earlier. The original location, yes, was in the cafeteria. But I'm pretty sure Money is much stronger than he looks, and he took that bust back to your room. Of course I remember. It was on top of the table in the cafeteria. Then what happened to it? I'd like you to remember one important fact, Mr. Wright. I cannot possibly leave the lodging house by myself. Ah, then that means... You understand what I mean, don't you? I may very well have been able to drop the bust from my room. However, how would I have gotten the bust from the cafeteria to my room? You see, Mr. Phoenix, right? Now explain that. Don't forget, you said there was no accomplice. Ah! Tell us exactly how the witness would have carried the bust from the cafeteria. Yep, we definitely have a problem here. But this is no place to get perplexed. I've got to get my wits about me and prove how things happen once and for all. Alright, Mr. Wright. Let's hear your explanation. Exactly how did the witness get the bust from the cafeteria to his room? His pet monkey. Money. A monkey? Everyone knows Money. He loves shiny objects of any size. Oh, like when he stole the ventriloquist's ring. So, are you saying the witness had a monkey steal the bust? Of course he didn't order the monkey to steal it. The monkey stole it on his own, and then brought it back home. Home? Money lives in Acro's room. Acro's room?! But the bust was bronze, wasn't it? Bronze isn't all that shiny. Maybe you should put the whip down sometimes and read the court record. The cards. My, those are some very nice cards he's holding. Yes, and they're made of platinum, which in and of itself is plenty shiny. Gah! Acro. Money is a strong monkey, right? It'd be easy for him to bring the bust back to your room. Well, if he wasn't able to handle that himself, I'd be on the market for a new roommate. Order! I said order! Miss Von Karma! Where is the bust in question at this moment? Well, I don't know. We're searching for it as we speak. Well, this is a rather strange turn of events. But let's say that the monkey had not stolen the bust. What would have happened then? Well, in that event, something else would have been used as the murder weapon. Wait. Then, you mean this bust was the murder weapon? Purely by accident? It's possible. Maybe Acro saw Money's mountain of stolen goods and thought to use one of them. Anyways, I think we've more than proven one critical fact. Namely, it was entirely possible that Acro was the murderer. You moron! Mr. Wright's argument was so circular, I'm still a bit dizzy. However, his argument does hold water. There is no denying that. Oh! Don't seem so flamboozled, especially by this fraud of an attorney. Fraud? You've forgotten the absolute most important thing, Mr. Phoenix Wright. And what is that? You should know. You forgot that your fraud of a magical client was spotted at the scene of the crime. Oh! There is no reason to doubt the clown's testimony. That is true. How do you respond to that, Mr. Wright? Hey, don't let her beat you now. Oh, I won't. This is my chance to turn this trial around. When the murder occurred, there were two people at the scene of the crime. One was the victim, Mr. Russell Barry, and the other was the murderer himself. Answer this And only this, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Who was the murderer the clown saw? Again, I went over that. Remember, Mo saw the silhouette of the silk hat, even though it was impossible. Acro said the same exact thing. So both of them, I concluded, were telling the truth on that specific point. If they were telling the truth, then the only way that's possible is that this bust is what Mo saw. If I can get there. There we go. He saw Max's bust. I asked who was the other person Mo saw on the scene. That evidence has nothing to do with the question. Au contraire, mon frere. It does indeed have something to do with the question. Mo said he saw Max's silhouette, but he did not actually see the man himself. It wasn't a human being he saw. How exactly is that possible? Oh dear. Where's my mouse? Okay. It's simple, really. What Mo actually saw that night was Max's bust. What are you talking about? Have you tried using your brain at all in this case? The silhouette he saw was wearing a cloak. There's no reason why you couldn't attach a cloak to the bust. It would be easy to hang one off of the cards in the bust's hand. You idiot! Who in their right mind would put a cloak on the bust? It doesn't matter who put it on the bust. Just wait a minute now, Mr. Wright. Who put the cloak on the bust? That question is of the utmost importance to this case, don't you agree? Pardon me. So let's have it, Mr. Wright. Who put the cloak on the bust? The cloak on the bust. Oh. Well, we had to remember that. Oh my god, this case has so much suppositions going on. We have to remember that Russell Berry was dressed as Max when he went out, with the cape and the silk hat. But when we were at the scene of the crime, when the crime was discovered, only the silk hat remained. There was no cape. So my idea here is that when Russell Berry, because he's the only one at the crime scene at that time, when Russell Berry was struck and killed, the Force sent the cape flying off of his body, and by some nightmarish miracle, it landed on the bust. That's my working theory. So, to be extremely technical, it was Russell Berry who put the cloak on the bust, even though that was not the intent. You fool! Him? Are you saying it was the victim himself, Russell Berry? That's what I'm saying. I mean, the victim himself placed the cloak on the bust. Place the cloak isn't really the right way of phrasing it. Then what would be the right way of putting it, Mr. Wright? Explain yourself. Nick, do you really have a handle on all of this? I'm fine, Maya. I'm finally putting all the pieces together. There's really only one picture I can paint anyways. Alright. So you want to know what really happened that night. Let's step back in time. Acro used a rope to lower the wooden box onto the scene. Then he attached that rope to the bust, and dangled the bust out of his bedroom window directly above the box itself. At the same time, the ringmaster told Max to wait in his room, and went to the scene. Of course, at the time, the ringmaster was wearing Max's costume. Perhaps he didn't want anyone to recognize him that night. But just as he feared, he was spotted at the entrance of the lodging house by none other than the ventriloquist and his puppet, Ben and Trilo. When the ringmaster arrived at the scene, he bent over to lift the wooden box. And that's when Acro took his chance and released the rope. Now this is when the magic happens. At the very instant the bust hit the victim, the cloak flew off, and by some nightmarish miracle landed on the bust. Now you wait just a second there, Mr. Phoenix Wright. As much as you try, as much as you scheme, this just isn't true. It can't be. It's still a little early to be getting so upset, Miss Von Karma. This circus isn't over yet. What? The impact of the bust on the victim threw the cloak up, which then snagged onto the bust. That impact also caused the sound of a certain witness heard, prompting him to take a look. That witness was, of course, Lawrence Moe Curls, the clown. When Moe looked out his window, the cloak had already snagged onto the bust. Now, having completed the crime, Acro naturally went about pulling up the murder weapon. Of course, he had no idea that Max saw the bust being raised with the cloak dangling on it, primarily because in his wheelchair, he couldn't see out his window, so he just kept pulling the bust up. And hence, the illusion of the flying murderer. And that is how the magical murderer disappearing into the sky came to be. So you see, the only person who could have pulled this off is the one person who was able to drop the murder weapon from above the crime scene. Bro, it could have only been you. Acro's playing mind games with all of us. He sure has. But he's come to the end of his rope now. So, what now? You've graced us with a rather long-winded tale. But do you have any evidence to prove that your fairy tale is true? Evidence? In this court, only two things matter. The power of evidence and the power of my whip. Don't forget the power of my gavel as well. Mr. Wright, the prosecution does bring up a good point. Can we see some evidence? Nick, they say they want evidence. Just explain how there can only be one possible murder method, but there's still something unusual about Moe's eyewitness account. Unusual? A contradiction, actually. Okay then, use that and get us out of this jam. That's enough talking amongst yourselves. Proceed, Mr. Wright. Present some evidence to the court that backs up your claims. I want hard proof that you have unraveled the tricks to this magic case. Oh. What contradiction is there in Moe's testimony? A large swap. A large swap. And then pulling up, and then the scene. I don't know what contradiction. Hard proof that I have unraveled the trick to this magic case. I don't know. Blunt force trauma to the back of the head. Are we still gonna go about this? That he saw him wearing the silk hat and going up into the sky? A fatal contradiction. In between this testimony and what's going on now. The things that are at the crime scene were the hat, the wooden box, that which was in the wooden box. I still have no idea what the frick that is. The photo of Max's award ceremony. Oh god, well I don't know. And I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video for a moment because it's going to half an hour. I'm going to take some time to think because I really have no idea where to even start with this thinking. And I will see you all in the next episode. Oh boy. Later, everyone.